Hi there, guys. Hello, everybody. I hope I'm audible to all of you all. Yes, clearly audible, guys. Okay, great, great. Fine. So we are to continue from where we had left. We will just continue from where we had left in the last lecture. Okay, so we had started a very important chapter as we discussed the I'm fine, I'm fine. I hope all of you all are doing good. Yes, hope everyone is fine. Great. So, yeah. Okay. So we'll continue with that chapter, okay? So I'm just sharing on the screen. Yeah, so last time we had covered till a certain part, right? So we have to carry further. I think we did till that migration, right? I hope you completed till the part of migration, right? Correct? Yes, so here it is. Yeah. So we were on the suspend part, right? So what do you mean by this? That is the to suspend. So what do you mean by the word suspend? So suspend means, see, during certain characters, after migration, it is also important to suspend the activities. So the meaning of the word suspend means what? To temporarily pause the activities, right? Like we all have heard about dormancy. What do you mean by the word dormancy? It is brought about by abscisic acid. So I hope you all are aware of the abscisic acid. The abscisic acid brings about the dormancy in the plants. So this dormancy is in fact good. This dormancy is for a good cause. Why is it for a good cause? Because when the external conditions are not favorable, it is better to remain dormant for some period of time, right? So that is the dormancy part. And dormancy is shown by so many seeds, so many plants, even bacteria. Even bacteria produce spores. Are you aware of the spores that the bacteria makes? The spores are quite strong. It is very difficult, to kill the bacteria. It's quite tough, right, to kill the bacteria, especially the ones with spores. So they're very tough to get killed because spores, even don't die by boiling. So even if we boil the water, the spores are not going to die. Correct? And then certain others show hibernation and estivation. You are well aware of these terms, hibernation and estivation. Hibernation is shown, it's called as the winter sleep, right? What is it called as? It's known as the winter sleep. And what is estivation called as? Estivation is called as what? The summer sleep, correct? Right? So there are two types. One is the hibernation followed by the estivation. One is known as the winter sleep. The other one is known as the summer sleep. Anyone could tell me which organisms are doing hibernation? Hibernation is property of particularly which animal comes to mind when we say the word hibernate? Anyone? That's correct. The polar bears, right? Very good, very good. Grizzly bears, very nice. Yeah, bears and frogs. That is correct. Himanshu, Devang, right? Nandish, Aryan. The polar bears, grizzly bears, they are showing very good hibernation. Even estivation. Estivation is called as what? Estivation is called as the summer sleep. So there are two patterns of sleep. One is the summer sleep and the other one is the winter sleep. That's correct. Right, Sonali. Correct, Mandish. So hibernation and estivation, they both are like turtles also rarely, yes, turtles also, right, Arya? No, no, you do not miss anything. Snakes also, yes. So many organisms are showing the hibernation as well as the estivation. Winter sleep is hibernation, summer sleep is estivation. That's correct. Very good. Yeah. So this is the stuff. So I was talking about the suspend. So from the NCRT, you can see that the spores, the walled spores, the spores are of thick walls. So they help the bacteria and even, certain fungi, certain lower plants. You all remember 11th standard, you did those spores called ascospores, basidiospores, oospores, and zoospores, and so many types of spores, right? So they survive from the unfavorable conditions. And in the higher plants, the vegetative reproductive structures help them to tide over the stressful conditions, So this is called as what, they reduce their metabolic activities and go in a state of dormancy. What is the meaning of the word dormancy? Means arrested growth. The growth is arrested for a temporary period. If they are not able to migrate, then what they do is that simply like the bears hibernate, right, during winters. They hardly move. They even don't urinate for days and days. They just sleep, right? So hibernation, all their metabolic, even snails and fish do estivation to avoid summer heat. Desiccation. What is desiccation? Drying. Yeah, very, very important. This was there last year. Under the unfavorable conditions, many zooplanktons, like, in the lakes and ponds, they enter a state of diapause. What is a diapause? Like a state of suspended. So this diapause word is very important for the MCQs. So they go into a state of what? They go into a state of diapause to survive their, from the bad conditions. So many animals, right? Yes. Okay, good. So all of you have answered well. Now, are there any other ways like by which this could be done? Any other way? I've got some more examples like how they tied over the. There are other ways also, guys, that you might be aware of that to survive from the unfavorable conditions, even amoeba does multiple fission, right? Multiple fission is shown by amoeba to tide over the unfavorable conditions. There's one more animal called as, I hope you know this, gamule formation. Even gamule formation is shown. Who shows gamule formation, by the way? Anyone? Gamule formation is shown by? Some freshwater sponges. Basically, gamule formation is shown by some of the freshwater sponges. So sponges are going to show the gamule formation, right? They are the ones which show the gamule formation, right? To protect. So this is also again internal. See, gamule formation is an internal budding. I hope you know that. What is gamule formation? It's a sort of the internal budding. It's a budding on the internal part to protect from the unfavorable conditions. Gamules gamules are formed from archaeocytes. I hope you're aware of that. Archaeocytes and amoebocytes, they form gamules and they are internal buds to protect from unfavorable conditions. So we have got options like migrate. If you can't hibernate, then or estivate. If you can't, simply like, the zooplanktons. Zooplanktons are basically like animals, but they are not animals. Phytoplanktons and zooplanktons. Zooplanktons are like sort of like insects. Okay, so zooplanktons, they go in a state of what? Diapause. They enter a state of the diapause to protect from the unfavorable environmental conditions. And then I told you about multiple fission. I told you about gamule formation, right? All those also count. Great. Let's continue further. Yeah, so in the next part, we've got to understand so here we are. We have done the part of suspend. Okay, now adaptations. There are so many adaptations that now, guys, I'm going to give you a lot of extra information apart from the adaptations here. Some adaptations, they are known as what, they are called as the structural adaptations. Some are physiological adaptations. What do you mean by the word physiological adaptations? Functional adaptations, like behavioral. Right? So adaptation, what is the basic meaning of the word adapt? Like you have to change, you have to adjust if you want to survive. So adaptation is definitely not optional, it is obligatory. It is forced upon, it is obligatory, it is forced upon. So there are different types like, morphological adaptations. Morphological account for structural adaptations. Physiological adaptations are the functional adaptations. And the behavioral are the patterns of behavior adaptations. So they enable the organisms mainly what? To survive and to reproduce. So their main aim is to survive and to reproduce, that is to perpetuate, to allow the next generations to come. So let's see examples of morphological first. You all know that, desert plants, they have got thick cuticle on the leaf surfaces. Their stomata are also sunken, they're very deep. So that, they reduce the transpiration. So most of the adaptations like structural adaptations, the desert plants, have to undergo like thick cuticle, thick skin, right? Thick leaf surface, deep sunken stomatas to minimize the loss of water, minimize transpiration. They even don't follow C3 and C4 pathway. They follow CAM pathway, Procylene acid metabolism pathway, right? So their stomata is actually open at the night time and they close during the day. It's all to conserve water. It is all for what? It is all for the water conservation, right? Opuntia, what they do is that, like cactus, their leaves are reduced to spines, right? Modifications, stem modifications. You had in morphology last year. I hope you know these are all the structural modifications for survival. Root modification, leaf modification, stem modifications, right? Photosynthetic function is taken by the stems. Man versus wild ratio, no, he cuts the stems and brings that juicy thing. So the photosynthesis is actually done by stems. So what you see in the Opuntia, so many varieties of cactus are there. Guys, in India and around the world, there are so many cactus gardens. Beautiful. So, okay. Then there's another, Allen's rule. What do you mean by the Allen's rule here? That's for the structure, like the mammals from cold regions. The Allen's rule is that they should have shorter snout. What is snout? Like a nose. Short nose, like very small ears and tail and limbs. Why? To minimize the heat loss. If they have a large surface area, they will lose heat quickly. So to minimize the surface area, they have this appendages, tail, nose, snout, they are small. So that, heat should be conserved. And aquatic mammals, you all know, like seals and sea lions, very, very important MCQ. They have a fat layer called as blubber. This is there in the adipose tissue in the 11th. The blubber helps them to protect from the extreme cold, sub-zero temperatures. Whales, sperm whales, which live very deep. Then obviously the polar bears, they all have the blubber. So it acts basically like an insulation. The behavioral modifications. Yes, the behavioral modifications are such that, to cope up with the, environment, desert lizards. So what they do is that in the daytime and in the night time, they have separate. So what they do in the, daytime is they hide in the caves. When the temperature is hot in the day, they hide in the caves. And in the early mornings, they bask in the sun. They absorb the heat. They maintain their temperature in a comfortable zone. So this is how they, typical behavioral adaptation. So like, they also understand that when it's heat, they have to go in the shade. When it's like early morning sun rays, they have to come out and bask in sun and get whatever sunlight and heat they want to maintain the body temperature. Some species, burrow in the sand. So sand burrowing to escape from heat. That is shown by few. Pretty much similar adaptations here also. Like there's one nice example. I told you that in the absence of external source of water, kangaroo rat in north is capable of meeting all its waters. Yeah, this is very, very important. This stuff is very important for MCQ. North America में kangaroo rat है. It never brings water in its entire life. It doesn't need water in its entire life because it gets all the water requirements through the internal fat oxidation. And during oxidation of fat, water is a byproduct. It also gains water from the dry seeds, that it eats. Okay, so internal fat oxidation, which water is a byproduct, it has the ability to concentrate the urine so that, even minimum volume of water is used to remove the excretory products. So they have adapted themselves so nicely that they concentrate the urine a lot. At the same time, they are able to, do their internal fat oxidation, so as to, water is formed as a byproduct. Yeah, all this part I've already explained to you about the cactus and the stomatas opuntia. All right, so then the mammals, from the colder regions. The Allen's rule I've told, the blubber thing I've told. Now this is something very interesting. This is awesome, interesting. Physiological adaptations, you know, from a stressful situation, there's guys something known as the altitude sickness. You know, above 3,500 meters, you know, what we get is we get something known as an altitude sickness. Now here, you know, I'm just going to come on the video and explain to you certain things. Yeah, so hey guys, anyone has been to the top, like, you know, about 3,500 meters? Yeah. Anyone been, like, you know, at the right at the top, like 3,500 meters? I've been to two beautiful places. One is Mount Titlis. Mount Titlis, amazing. No words. And our own Indian Rohtang Pass. I've been there twice at the summit of Rohtang. And I'll tell you, in fact, 2 years back, exactly around this date, I was there. So it was beautiful, but at the same time, very risky, because when you go to the top, you cannot run. If you try and run, you start huffing and you start panting. Same happens in Ladakh, you know, highest motorable road. So the oxygen is less there. So when oxygen is less, our body has to adapt. We have to show certain, you know, physiological changes. We have to show certain changes in order to, you know, modify ourselves. So what we do is that when we are above 3,500 meters, some people show altitude sickness, air sickness. Like, you know, what happens is that they start getting headaches. Their blood pressure starts fluctuating. They start feeling dizzy. Some of them vomit, right? Some get, you know, cramps. Yeah, so this is all altitude sickness. It goes away. It goes away if you get adjusted. That's why if you might have heard, there was some nice movies called K2 Peak and Everest, and or if you've seen the movies, whenever they go to Everest, there is a base camp. There is, you know, different levels they have to take halts. Why they take halts? To adjust themselves to the altitudes. You can't just say, I want to go to Everest, right? It's not like that. It's not so easy. So many fitness, so many tests need to be passed. And there is a base camp, but Everest base camp. So many people only just go to the base camp and they return back. Right? So altitude sickness, yeah, you need to acclimatize. I remember at the right at the summit of Rohtang, and it was awesome. It was beautiful. I can't describe. The snowfall was falling, and it was like bullets. It was like bullets of snow lashing at you. And trust me, I've never seen tea getting cold in like 5 seconds. You know, just they pour that hot kettle, just pour a tea. 5 seconds, it's cold. 5 seconds. So what happens there? You know, how does the body adjust there? Our body adjusts there by increasing the speed of breathing. That's called as what? That is called as hyperpnea. Hyperpnea means what? We breathe very fast. Our breathing is little increased. Normally, if in Mumbai we are breathing around 16 to 18 times a minute, they will be breathing around 25 to 30 times a minute. I'm talking approximate. So why we breathe more times? To adapt to get more and more oxygen. Then the binding affinity of, you know, the binding affinity of hemoglobin for oxygen is reduced. Because if the binding affinity is kept high, then less binding will happen. So the binding affinity, so there's one more adaptation which we do, is that the binding affinity of hemoglobin to oxygen is reduced, so that, you know, whatever is there, it get bind, you know, oxygen binding happens. And the third and the most important adaptation is that, which is the very favorite MCQ for NEET, is that does our RBCs increase in size or do our RBCs increase in numbers? When we are going to heights, when we are scaling the heights, our RBCs increase in numbers or they increase in size? Or both? What do you feel? There is increase in RBC size, there is increase in RBC numbers, or both? Yeah, Himanshu is saying only the size increases. Yeah, anyone else? The answer is, guys, the answer is pretty easy. The answer is that only the RBC number increases, not the size. Size does not increase. Size increase ho gaya, so it's called as no, guys. Both do no. Only size increases. So I'm sorry. Number increases, not the size. Number increase is very important. Okay, what is important is the increase in the number first. Increase in number is very important. Yes, so remember that at the heights, our body has to get acclimatized. There is increase mainly in the RBC production. The RBC rate is very high, and that's why you might have seen. Haven't you all seen, guys? जो लोग लद्दाख में रहते हैं, जो कश्मीर में रहते हैं, they are all red. They're very fair, obviously, that's due to climate. But also they're very reddish. Their skin is very reddish. You have seen Ladakhi, Tibetis. You know why? They have high RBC count. Their RBC count is way higher than what we have at the plains. Plains mean the plateaus. What is the normal RBC count? What is the normal RBC count, guys? Per cubic millimeter of blood, the RBC count here in Mumbai would be around 5 million. It would be around 5 million per cubic millimeter, right? What would be the RBC count? Around 5 million, right? I hope you know that. 4.5 to 5.5 depends on girls, and yeah, that's okay as per the age. In there, if you're at the, if you stay there for long, your RBC count will get acclimatized. It will be around what it will be? It will be around 6 to 6.5 million. So your RBC count is going to increase. Why? Because more and more RBCs are formed by the bone marrow to utilize whatever oxygen they get. So 3 changes: breathing speed increases, the size of the size of RBCs, the RBC size, the numbers increase, and what happens is that the binding affinity is lowered for oxygen. So these are the very important properties that we have to change ourselves. So that's a physiological adaptation. What is it? It is purely a physiological adaptation. So what are the different types, which are the different types of the adaptations? Yeah, so let's see the yeah, so I told you about the Rohtang Pass, which is near Manali. It's like beautiful, right? So the altitude sickness. So acclimatization occurs, gradually as you go there, decreasing the binding affinity of hemoglobin to oxygen, increasing the RBC production, not the size, and increasing the breathing rate. That's why you'll have higher red blood cell count than people living in the plains. So humans ka, we 37 degrees is the best for us, but there are archaea bacteria, that flourish in hot springs, deep hydrothermal vents above 100 degrees. Archaea bacteria are the first ones to evolve in life, right? So they can tolerate the harshest of the environments. There is somebody like who can live in space. They say it's like kind of like an insect. It's called as the tardigrade. Have you heard about tardigrade? There's a lot of speculation that tardigrades can actually live in space. So many fish thrive in the Antarctic waters. Temperature is freezing. So they manage there, because Yes. So what happens is that, large variety of invertebrates and fish which live at great depths, above where the, ocean pressure 100 times the normal atmospheric pressure, they have a fascinating array of biochemical adaptations. Their RBCs don't freeze. The red blood cells, their blood doesn't freeze. So it is all biochemical adaptations. Lizards also we have told you, right? This example of lizards we just discussed. Okay. So guys, a lot of extra info now. Let's brace ourselves for extra information. Like, very important. So I told you the sun plants, they are called as what? Heliophytes. Sun-loving plants are heliophytes. What are the adaptations like? These desert plants have cuticle is thick, stomata sunken, spines and thorns are present, you know, leathery leaves. So lots of these adaptations. Yeah, the shade-loving plants are called sciophytes. Awesome stuff, right? Sciophytes are the shade-loving plants, right? So they have the reverse properties. Sciophytes, they are the shade-loving. Their leaves are large and soft and thin. They lie horizontally to receive maximum sunlight because they are the shade plants which grow in, places where sunlight is very less. Spongy parenchyma is more developed because they have chloroplasts more there. Cells are large, intercellular spaces are large so as to store the oxygen. So heliophytes are sun plants. They grow in full sunlight, so they have to protect themselves from the harsh sun. And sciophytes are the shade plants, so they have to make some changes so that whatever light they get, whatever little light is available, they can utilize it to the maximum. Yeah, so see, the temperature, as per the temperature, megatherms, the tropical, right? So they grow in like temperatures of 30 to 40 degrees, right? The rainforest. So that is called megatherms. Mesotherms are those plants. So one of that is the megatherms. Second one is the mesotherms, right? So example is like, sacred tree, ficus people. They are the mesotherms. They glow in like subtropics, temperate, low temperate and subtropics. Deciduous types, they are called as a mesotherms. So megatherms are totally tropical. Mesotherms, they are subtropical. They are partly deciduous. That is people. Microtherms are like growing in low temperatures, 10 to 20 degrees, right? Like they have mixed coniferous type that is called taiga. So anyone who was confused what is tundras and taiga, this is the definition, guys. I'm sure you all had this confusion, right? What is taiga? Taigas is a place where vegetation is mixed with coniferous forest. So vegetation and conifers are mixed. That is called as a taiga. And the plants that live there are microtherms. वहाँ पे temperature is 10 to 20 degrees. This is basically in all this North India, you know. And then we have the hecistotherms like 0 to 10 degrees. Here the dominant vegetation is only alpine, that is called tundras. That's Switzerland and all these beautiful places, Europe and North Pole. Okay, so I hope you understood megatherms, mesotherms, microtherms, hecistotherms. Clear to all? Okay. Yeah, this is quite something interesting that 300 feet, the more you go in altitude, temperature decreases by 1 degree Fahrenheit. So they said 300 feet you go, like, what is the height of Mount Everest? 29,000, more than 29,000 feet, somewhere around 8,000, I think 700 meters. So for 300 feet, 1 degree Fahrenheit, the temperature reduces. So this mutualism and all that will be coming, right, in this same chapter. So we'll be talking about certain types of the adaptations which are required. Like xerophytes, those who have adapted themselves for dry habits is xerophytes. Succulents means like, aloe vera, opuntia, they're called as succulents. Let's just understand certain things like oxalophytes are plants growing on acidic soil. Psychrophytes are plants, growing on cold soil. They are the plants growing on cold soil. They are called as psychrophytes. Halophytes, in saline soil. Lithophytes, plants growing on rocks, right? Then others you don't require. Just remember, helophytes, plants growing in mud. So oxalophytes is acidic, psychrophytes is like cold soil, halophytes, saline soil, that is salty. Lithophytes is on rocks. Xerophytes is like deserts, no dry places. Okay, then comes the population part. The population part. Before I go there, I would like to do the MCQs based on the ecology. Say other adaptations, and let me give you certain more adaptations which I wanted to give you all. Yeah, so whatever you feel is important, you may just jot it down. Okay, so adaptation, the first adaptation is for the xerophytic one, right? So the xerophytic one is for what? Xerophytic one is for on, in the deserts. So desert life, the xerophytic adaptation, like certain snails, opuntia, cactus, that is the xerophytic type. Second one, is pretty easy. It is called as terrestrial So the terrestrial adaptation is shown by most of the mammals, right? They are eukaryotic, right? So they have certain features. So terrestrial adaptation is for what? For land. Aquatic adaptation. You all know what is aquatic for life in water. So what do the fish have for that? They have streamlined body, spindle shaped. They have got fins, right? They have got air bladder for buoyancy. Smell is powerful, right? They have got these features. They're cold blooded. Then for aerial adaptation, very important adaptation called as the aerial one. There's another name for aerial adaptation. It is also known as the volant adaptation. I hope you know that. Don't know, please then write it down. Aerial adaptation ka another name is called volant adaptation. So, which are the features that the birds have? Like you had all this in the Kingdom Animalia. Do you remember? The birds have got spindle-shaped body. Again, wings are there, feathers are there. Is the exoskeleton. Very good eyesight, very good grip, very good cerebellum for balancing. And then most important was that they only had left-sided ovary and oviduct. Ovary and oviduct was only on one side to reduce the body weight. They were uricotelic, so that they could concentrate the urine, because otherwise they'll be like Titanic, right? If they drink water a lot. That's the reason birds were the uricotelic. Another adaptation was they don't have urinary bladder, and their excretory and urinary passes through the same part. They have only a common passage for excretory and urinary and all that. It's mixed. Okay. So yeah, very good. Cloaca. Even marine turtles, they have got cloaca. Marine turtles have got cloaca. In fact, you would be surprised, Himanshu. Cloaca is an organ for respiration in marine turtles. Marine turtles, the respiration is cloacal respiration. Imagine. Okay, so these are the different parts. Cool, very good. Yes, right, Ashwin. And yeah, hollow bones. What is the name for that, Ashwin? Hollow bones what is the other name for hollow bones called as? Very good, very good. It is called as very good, Komal. Pneumatic bones. Hollow bones are called as what? They are known as the pneumatic bones, right, Komal? Then any other adaptation? Yes, there are several left, like the arboreal adaptation. Arboreal adaptation is shown by what? Monkeys and squirrels and all. That is for life on trees. That is the arboreal. Very good, Komal. Still more are left. I'll give you still more. Yes, which more are left? See here. Cursorial adaptation. You know what is cursorial adaptation? For fast running. Remember, adaptation is called volant adaptation. Volant. And cursorial is for fast running. That's actually shown by cockroach. Fastest, fastest insects. So cursorial means for running fast. And there's one more adaptation known as the fossorial adaptation. Fossorial adaptation is shown by moles and rats. They have pointed snout, like, claws like for digging, right? So that is called fossorial adaptation. So many different types of adaptations we have discussed, Yes, very good. Then we go into the MCQs. I want you to solve the MCQs well. Huh? Everyone, please solve the MCQs well. Give it your best. Do it sincerely. We have done till the population part. So till there we are going to solve the MCQs. Yeah. So could you please try the question number MCQ number 2? Question number 2. Send the answers in the chat. The geographical limit within which a population exists is called as what? Yes, Himanshu has answered. Anyone else? Okay, great, great. So the answer is yes, very good. So that will be the answer. Guys, nobody's, chalo, answer please. Okay, the next one, that is the MCQ number 8. MCQ number 8. Which of the following statements is true regarding individuals of the same species? They are interbreeding, they live in the same niche, they live in different niche, or they live in different habitat. Which one of the following is true? No, guys, the answer will be they are interbreeding, because it is not compulsory that all individuals of that species will live in the same niche. It is not compulsory. Interbreeding is more right. Interbreeding, obviously, they are of the same species. See, why niche is not compulsory? Because it is not like a rule that they have to belong to the same particular niche. Because niche matlab kya? Occupations. So in one species, whatever it's not compulsory that they will have the same niches. Like in humans, we all are humans. Do we have the same niches? Do we have the same occupations? Do we have the same professions? No, right? There's this MCQ I'm going to answer for you all. What is a keystone species? I'm going to answer for you all. It's a species which make up only small proportion of the total biomass. They are actually very less, so their population is very less, but they have a huge impact on the survival. That is why the word itself is keystone. So keystone species are those whose population might be less in number, but they are very important for the stability of the ecosystem, for the survival. That's the reason what are they known as the keystone species. Please try this MHCD 2003. The ecological niche of population is what? Come on, guys. Try MCQ number 13. One student is answering. Only one is answering. Why so, guys? Yeah. Yes. Ecological niche is what? It is a set of condition and resources it uses. That is right. Very good. Yes. Who would try this? The term ecology was proposed by. Yes. MCQ number 16. Chalo, fast. Answer should come very fast. Ecology was proposed by whom? It was proposed by, obviously the scientist is what? Rieter, right? Popularized by Haeckel, but it was given by Rieter. Yeah, name the MCQ number 28. Name the famous plant ecologist who is considered as the father of ecology. I told you this answer. Yes, guys, will it be Charles Darwin, Bilbil Sani? Yes, it is Professor Ramdev Misra, right? Ramdev Misra. You know, I'm only giving you the answers. MCQ number 30 now, AFMC, CPMT. The niche of a species refers to what? Come on, guys, you should answer fatafat. What would be the answer for 38th one? In India, right? India. Professor Ramdev Misra is from India. Right? Yes, the term niche is B, right? Komal is, it is B, specific place where an organism lives and performs its duty also. So along with the duty. Chalo, anyway, let's yeah, could you at least solve this now? 35. A community is defined as what? Group of birds, interacting population, collection of species. I've got different answers. Guys, I've got different answers. Himanshu is saying B, whereas Ashita, Samiksha, Vibha, and Preksha, you all are saying C. See, guys, first, what is that? Individual. Many individuals together form a population, right? And different populations, populations of different species, they form a community. Very good. C is the right answer. Perfect. Himanshu, it will be C. Very good. Others are right. Correct. Yes. We go further. Yeah, you could answer this ninth one. What is the meaning of the word acclimatization? It is, what is it? Is it pure line breeding, pure line selection, introduction, or adaptation? We have just done that, right? No, population don't interact in an ecosystem. Yeah, see, first is individuals. Like you are an individual, I'm an individual. When many of us unite, we get what? Population, right? So that makes the population of humans. And when populations of different species like lion population, cat population, human populations, when many population interact together, it is a community. And when many communities interact together, it is an ecosystem. Interaction between many communities is an ecosystem. So it is at a still at a higher level. So yeah, very good. Yeah. A and B नहीं आएगा. It's very easy. D is the answer. Adaptation. Acclimatization means adaptation. Simple, no? Acclimatization means what, to get adapted. See, guys, I told you this and this came for the MCQ. I will only answer. Sun-loving plants are referred to as what? Halophytes. Right? Sun-loving plants. Oh, sorry. Sun-loving plants are called as what? Heliophytes. Like sunflower. Halophytes are the salinity wale. And see, edaphic factors are factors related to soil. This also I told you. Factors related to soil are the edaphic factors. Yeah, could you solve 48 now? MCQ number 48. Mohan, this to we had solved now. 48, guys. 48. What will be A, what will be B, and what will be C? Yeah, guys. A1 is a flat line, horizontal. So A is a regulator, right? No doubt about that. A is a regulator. B is like this. So B is a conformer. And C is a partial regulator. So answer will be option A. What will be the answer? It will be option A. Yes, guys, please try MCQ number 4. Let's see who solves. Let's see who solves. Fourth one. Which one of the following is not a parasitic adaptation? Not a parasitic adaptation. Yeah, very good. Viva is right. Perfect. C is the right answer. That was a tricky one, right? Because see, parasites, they lack certain things. What do parasites see? What are the things they don't have? They don't have digestive organs because they're sucking blood. They don't have sensory organs because they are internal. If they're internal parasites, they don't need also, right? So they don't need what they don't need and what they need. What they don't need is the digestive organs. What they don't need is the sensory parts, right? What they need is, they need hooks and adhesive organs like hook and suckers, and they need a lot of power of reproduction. So they have high reproduction capacity. So loss of reproductive capacity is not a parasitic adaptation. Very good. Manshu is also right. Yeah, please try for MCQ number 12, which is what is wrong about xerophytes? What is wrong about these xerophytes? Should they have sunken stomata? Is it wrong? Spiny leaves, thick cuticle, or large number of stomata? Which is not a trait basically of xerophytes. Whereas the answer is what? Sunken stomata is true. Thick cuticle is true. I think D is not the right answer. Large number of stomata. Large number of stomata is not a trait. These MCQs, though, they look like, but they're very important. Trust me. See, this all has come. See, all these MCQs, देखो ये सब आया है ना. ये देखो नीट में ये सब पूछा है. ये देखो नीट 2016, 2017. See, anyone can solve. Jipmer Komal was an exam, earlier. Jawaharlal Institute of Paramedical and Medical. It was a Pondicherry. It is still there. The institute is beautiful. There were two colleges, Pondicherry mein, and I have like total of 12, 13 students who have passed out. Two are doing actually they are right now in Jipmer. Very good, very good. They used to have their separate test earlier. That's what I'm saying. There was a time around few years back when one student who wanted to enter medical, they gave 10 exams. They gave JIPMER, they gave Maharashtra CET, they gave AIPMT, right? They gave Varda CET, they gave Pune ka BVP Bharatiya Vidyapeeth ka CET, they gave BHU Banaras Hindu University CET, AMU Aligarh Muslim University CET, JIPMER they gave, and there was one more Gujarat CET, good CET they gave, and there was one more like the private colleges ka CET was their associated CET that they gave. They gave CMC Vellore ka CET. They used to give that. One more was there, MGM ka CET. So they like, I remember my students being 11 CETs at a time. There was a time, so you had got more chances. You had more attempts. You could give 10 exams. Now it is good they centralize it to NEET. It's good. Okay, so chalo, let's go ahead. So then the population, these we're going further to the population attributes now, the things associated with population. That's a separate subtopic. So what I do is that I cover the topics one at a time and solve the MCQs as well. Because the entire chapter to do together with the MCQs, it's quite like messing up things. So population, we all know individuals of the same species, which there is a population. Population has got several factors like size and density. The size means what number of individuals. Density is very different. Remember, density what alag hai. Like for example, and then there are several factors that deal with population, like uh, population ka natality, mortality, immigration, emigration, age pyramids, population growth rate, biotic potential. So let's understand these some of these population attributes. Yeah, hi there. What I want to discuss with you all is that the population attributes. Let us discuss about the population attributes. That is, now see the size and density is very different. So if there is an MCQ asked, like by virtue of the population, which is a state, having the maximum population in India. Anyone? This is an MCQ. It qualifies as an MCQ. Largest populated state in the world is China, but density wise, density wise it is India. Density is what mass upon volume, no? So in terms of population, China is still more than us, but in terms of area and people upon area ratio, density wise, we are number one. So the same way now I'm asking about in India, yeah, and China has more land, and they want to grab, they also want to grab more and more. Anyway, so what I'm saying is that with respect to the which is a highly populated state in India, which is a state in India with the maximum population in numbers. So if you go number wise, which state has the maximum population? It is Uttar Pradesh. It is UP, Uttar Pradesh. So Uttar Pradesh has the highest number of people, right? And they are greater in terms of area also. But density wise, density wise, which state is the highest in the population with respect to density? Anyone? Density wise, no, after Uttar Pradesh, there is Maharashtra in terms of number of population. But density wise, I'm asking, you will be surprised which states come number one in density of population. Anybody? Yeah, very good, Vibha. Vibha is right. How, I mean, how did you know it? Like very few people know it. Yeah, she's in fact right. The answer is West Bengal. WB West Bengal has the highest number of density. Yes, West Bengal is the number one in density wise because they have a very large population in a very small area. Very large in population and comparatively very small area, right? So they are the density wise, they are number one. Yep. We have to go further. We have to go further to the next parts. That is the population ka refugees. Okay. Good one. Good one. Good one. We have to go ahead and discuss, certain other things like. So what we have to understand is that the population, natality and mortality. What is natality? It is the birth rate. And what is mortality? It is the death rate. So natality means what? The birth rate, number of individuals born. How many number of individuals are born is called as the natality of that particular population. So natality is said to be the birth rate and the mortality is said to be the death rate, right? So they are very important. How many people or how many individuals are born on an average is called as the natality, and the opposite of that would be the mortality, right? Yes, that's correct. Perfect. Okay. Then to go ahead to the next part, there is something called as a realized natality, and there's something called as there is a realized natality, and there is realized natality and the biotic potential. So what do you mean by this? Natality is also of two types. There is an actual and there is a realized one. Yes, there is absolute natality and there is realized natality. So what do you mean by the word absolute natality? Absolute matlab kya? Maximum they can give under ideal conditions. So guys pay attention. This is very important. Natality means the birth rate, right? You all know what is birth rate. There are two forms of, natalities. Absolute natality means how many maximum number of kids they can give under ideal conditions. So if the conditions are ideal, there is no diseases, there are no competitors. So an organism, they can give highest number of offsprings. That is called as the absolute natality. But absolute natality is impractical because in nature, there will always be problems, there will always be competitors, there will always be struggle. So absolute natality is basically just in dreams. What is a real one is a realized natality. Realized natality is more practical. Absolute natality is only theoretical, but it can never be, an actuality, a reality. Realized natality means what is the actual birth rate? What is the actual birth rate with respect to the conditions existing, like the diseases, like the predators, like the. So that one is called as the. We can take as a reference. Yes, we can take as a reference, but it will not be practical, na? Like the maximum they can give. Yeah. Yes, Komal. Like biotic potential, absolute natality can be also called as the biotic potential, right? Ideal never happens. True. What is a biotic potential? Is the maximum number of babies that they can give. Like for a human, the biotic potential can be 12 to 13. So human female ka biotic potential jo hai, that can be 12, 13 also. But is it actually there? Is it do everyone that you see around you, do they have 12 children? Right? The biotic potential, it used to be, but not from one female. It used to be like two wives and all that, like not from single one. Rarely from a single one. Right? So 12 to 13 is the biotic potential of a female. That is absolute natality. But realize me, it is not at all. Right? Realize me, it is not at all, right? Okay. Fine. So that is about the natality. So which natality is more? Absolute, theoretically. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, theoretically, realized natality is always more. And, which natality is more? Absolute one. So in actuality, which natality will be more? Absolute natality will be more and realized natality will be less. Now let us talk about mortality. Mortality means what? How many number of people died in a particular place, average number of deaths is called as the mortality. Average number of deaths is called as what? It is the mortality. Usme bhi there are two types: absolute mortality and realized mortality. So now here everything changes. You know, here in the there in the natality, it was what? It was the opposite, that in the ideal conditions. In the ideal conditions. So here absolute mortality means what? If there are ideal conditions, if there are ideal conditions existing, like everything is good, there are no diseases and all. So what will happen? Absolute mortality will be more or it will be less. In the ideal conditions, the absolute mortality will be more or less. There, see, for natality, if the conditions are ideal, the absolute natality is more, right? But its realized natality is less. But here in mortality, it is opposite. In mortality, it is opposite. If there are ideal conditions, very good conditions, then mortality will be more or less. It will be less, right? In good conditions, the mortality will be less. So absolute mortality is under ideal conditions. Even that is never a reality. Realized mortality means what? It is the actual mortality. Like, you know, you see this COVID situation, so many COVID related deaths. That is a realized mortality. It is the actual one in present, in the current scenario. So did you understand? So in case of natality, the absolute natality was more, and it was like imaginary, and the realized natality was actually less. But in mortality, it is the opposite. In mortality, the realized mortality is more, and the absolute mortality is less. Did you understand what I just explained? Absolute means what? Under ideal conditions. And imagine if the conditions are ideal. Imagine if the world conditions are ideal, then what will happen? Natality will be more, but mortality will be less. Did you understand? So they will be opposite, right? Okay. Did you understand? So absolute natality is always more and the realized natality is less. And in case of mortality, it is a reverse. The absolute mortality in ideal conditions will be less, but that is imaginary. The realized mortality will be much more of that. Did you all understand? Okay. Birth rate. So when how many people are born in a area, that is called as a crude birth rate. If, for example, 15 children are born in a population of thousands, so crude birth rate is for 15. Yeah, so did you understand? So what I was saying, the birth rate, the overall birth rate. So crude birth rate just says that how many people are born, like per thousand. Right? So in an area of 1,000, how many people are born? That is called as what the crude birth rate. But specific birth rate, carp means fish. Like fish rate. Right? Crude birth rate will be 800. Now there are thousands. Right? Initially, there were only 200 fish. New are born. So for specific birth rate, 4. So it is like every fish is given birth to 4 children average. Now total population is 1,000. So the existing 200 fish, everyone birth to right? So 4 offsprings per year per fish. That is the average specific. Yeah, and then we go to the next concept, like the important concept of the sex ratio. What is the sex ratio? It's very important. It's asked for MCQs many times. It is a number of females per 1,000 males. Number of females as compared to 1,000 males, how many females are there? So as compared to 1,000 males in an area, the number of females existing is known as a sex ratio. So what was a ratio, on an average? Do you know what was the sex ratio of India? As an average, it is very less. So India still is a masculine population. That is a male-dominated population where males are more in numbers. The ratio is 933 is to 1,000 average. So the average ratio, sex ratio, that is number of females per 1,000 males. Remember, it is not number of males per females. It is females per 1,000 males. So 933 is there. It is worse in certain North India states, like the least being in Chandigarh or Delhi or UP, Bihar, Rajasthan. These all states have a very, very poor sex ratio. So it's like a divide between North and South. North India has always had really bad sex ratios compared to the South India. There the sex ratio is better. Like if you take, for example, Kerala and all, they have 1063. So more females as compared to males, right? So the sex ratios of Chandigarh and all, they are 810, 790, like that. They're very, very poor, very less. Because of the female feticide, female infanticide, and giving less importance to the female population in that part of the country, that's mainly because of education. Lack of education, that is the main reason. Yes, right. So what we want is that we want like 1:1 ratio. The ratio that would be actually desired would be 1:1. So then that would maintain the stability of the population, right? So that's why, there are different types of population. We have to go to the population attributes, like, the pyramids, different types of population pyramids. That is the expanding population, stable population, declining populations. In some countries, the populations are growing, expanding. Certain countries, they are declining. Certain countries are stable. We want a stable population, plateau. We don't want a broad increase, neither a broad crash. When population reduces suddenly, it is called as population crash. That also we don't want. So there is an evolutionary stable strategy, ESS, evolutionary stable strategy, that says that male and female ratio should be 1:1, equal, right? So what we will do is that we will go ahead with the, the population different pyramids, that is the pyramids of population and the age structures. There are different groups of age structures. So age may be different structures. As per that, there are different types. Yes, plague came, like population holocaust. It's also called as sometimes population holocaust or population crash in Greece, right? Good. Very good. Yeah, fine. Okay, so yes, we will be continuing this chapter further. So we have to go very slow and steadily methodologically in these chapters, because it's very important that, these smaller chapters, we emphasize on the details of it and we do it in properly, don't miss upon the important points. Census, yes, very good. Census and stuff, good. Good habit. Census is going to happen this year. Every 10 years, right? 10 years. 2021, it is going to happen. So let's see what figures come for India, right? So anyway, guys, so everyone understood, I hope, whatever taught. And we will continue next time in the next week. So please read and revise till whatever part I've done. Okay, do the revision nicely, and I'll see you in the next week. So thank you so much. Yeah, please. Yes, what happened? Yes, anything? Yeah, thank you. So I told you, it will adjust like slowly and steadily, the frequency will adjust. Everyone has their own patterns, like, everyone has their own ways. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Thank you so much. Yeah, take care. We'll do justice. Don't worry. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Bye, guys. Then thank you so much, everyone. Good night. Take care, everyone. Bye bye. See ya.